Hello guys, welcome back to the third video I believe in the series, and in this one we're not going to be doing any machine learning, but we are going to be building the front end of our website with React.js. So first of all, open up a folder with ID of your choice. So I use Atom, so I opened it with Atom, and then go into that directory. Then type the following. First of all, let me get the path to this. Web ML translator. So go into your folder and then type create React app and then client. Now if this shows up an error, that will mean you don't. Let me see if I'm even recording this. I don't think you guys can see this. Yeah, now you can. So just type create React app and then this will be the name of your app, and that will be the front end. However, if you never used React before, you don't have create React app installed, and that means you have to use npm install create React app, or if that doesn't work, try npx create React app, and if that doesn't work, just consult Stack Overflow. Thank you. So this is going to take a while. I really don't know why, but it's getting slower and slower for me every time I build stuff up with Create React app. Maybe it's because there was an update, and ever since that update it got slower. But anyways, so in the meantime, I'm going to be explaining a bit about what we're going to be doing, and then I'm just going to cut to when the app is finished building. So this is going to be our app, our website, and then under it there's going to be a client side, aka the front end, and there's going to be a back end, the server, whatever you call it. Those two are going to be in different folders because they don't directly the content that they consist of do not directly interact with each other, meaning I don't have to load stuff from the client into the server, right? Like they can call to each other, but you know, they don't share files. So later what's going to happen is we're going to make a new folder called server, right? Or yeah, we can just call it server, whatever. And then inside of here we're going to create our Flask endpoints, and what would those look like? It's going to be, I'm just creating a random txt file, and it's going to be something like def, I'm in a Chinese mode, API/predict, and then it's going to have something like load. So we're going to pseudocode, this is pseudocode, we're going to load the classifier. Actually in our case it's going to be it's not a classifier at all. It's a neural machine translator model, right? From the this is the model.h5 that we should have saved from running the training script in the last video. And then now we have the h5 file. What we can do is we can so what we can do is just simply model.predict with the, now predict, we're going to be predicting some sort of data, right? And that data is going to be coming from the front side. And then how do we get the stuff that is sending with the request? It's going to be something like request.json dot some sort of stuff like this, request.json dot form data, I don't know, some sort of stuff that has to do with the request that is sent here. And then after you do the predict, it's going to be like returning the result. and that will automatically send back the in pseudocode that is going to send back data to the client side, and we can send back stuff like a success message, or if we want to actually send back a result, we just send back the result, and then we can display the client. So at this point, let me see if it is done. That's weird. That is really weird. Okay, so I'll just be playing this. Okay, I'm gonna cut it right now until it's done. So I'll see you guys in a second. Hey guys, so at this point, I'm done building the Create React app, and it took me about 10 minutes, so pretty long. And first of all, it is likely that after you do create React app, you can see function here in the app.js file under the source. Change the class, and you have to import component like this. So, and then erase the things in the middle. So if you're new to React, and then you have done HTML before, and you have done JavaScript before, you might be a little bit puzzled because you can see HTML tags here being integrated and combined with stuff like return and render, which are clearly seems to be written in JavaScript syntax. So yeah, normally, and I remember, I think the React docs has the perfect explanation for this. So normally if you were to create a JavaScript application from the ground up, you would have the HTML stuff in one file, and then you have all the other logic and JavaScript stuff in another file or in another place. They're like split up, right? And then when you have to do stuff, you do document.getElementID and to grab the HTML tag, and then manipulate changes on that, which is insanely, well, I guess it works, and it still works, right? But before the folks at Facebook, they thought this was insanely not optimized. It is not optimized, I should say. So they came up with a way that you can just integrate these together. And what you're seeing right now is a JavaScript class, but in its return function, it's returning HTML stuff. And this is the stuff being rendered, really. And we can see that with, so this is just a class, that means, and the reason that this is being rendered, right, we have an input right here, is because somewhere we must be rendering the app, and then we go to index.js, and then we see, oh, React DOM.render, the app components, and then yeah, this whatever, we render it in the HTML root. So let me show you guys a little example to get more detailed into React. There's this perfect balance with scripting language. I mean the scripting, the logic, the handling with the templating language, right? The front end, the UI. And with the React components, aka React classes, you have this thing called the state inside of every single class that you can set, and you can have individual objects in the state, like maybe the translation output. And the interesting thing is you can combine the JavaScript stuff and integrate it inside of the HTML, right? Inside of these HTML tags, just by simply opening up a bracket, and then you can do this dot state dot translation output. Oh. Output's a placeholder. Now let's do something a little bit cooler. Let's and there's also different ways to do it. Like you can do const. People usually write it this way, so you do const output text equals to this dot state dot translation output, and then right here you just do output text. And doing it this way doing it this way also allows one good thing, which is that you can do a lot of if else's and a lot of logic right here, versus in the return statement you cannot just write you actually cannot just write if blah 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 else. You can only write it in the terminal ternary expression, which is something like the condition, then this, else that, which can get a little bit heavy sometimes. But anyways, let's render the output text, and then let's do something with the events. We're gonna do an on-click events, and then on click of this, we're gonna do some action, and this action is going to be binded to the app component, and that's why it says this dot handle click. And now this is apps handle click, so we can come down here and then give app a handle click. We're going to make this an arrow function. By arrow function, I mean this little thing right here. Now if you make it a normal function, like with the actual function syntax inside, so you actually manually write function handle click, that is fine too, but you have to bind it inside of the constructor, or else it is not recognized as apps function. But with the arrow function, that it is implicitly understood as so. Let's do, you're gonna see another method that is used a million times in every single React.js application, which is setState. We're gonna set it to changed. I don't know. You better expect when I press that, it changes to changed. So what just happened? You don't, for React setState is React's special function. You never want to do this dot state dot equals to changed. This works. I'll show you guys that this works. Actually, we need to do the translation output. This will work. Actually, also if you do this dot force update, then this will work. But this is simply not good practice. The React docs, the first thing it says about setState is that never manipulate the state directly. And this dot force update is usually not is not usually the best practice. If you just, that usually indicates that you're doing something wrong. Anyways, so use the setState function. Again, the setState function changes the state inside of a component, which in turn determines something different to be rendered in a templating language. So what does this have to do with all of the things we're going to be doing today? First of all, how much time do we have left? 7 minutes and 29. I'm going to go about like 5 more minutes. Well, this is the same thing that we're going to be building with the application. We have an input form, and then we have an output. So actually at this point it is done already. I can just add a button right here, and we can add a button just with a button HTML tag. Click me to translate. And then if I click that, I can give the onClick function to this guy. And then what happens on click is that in here we're going to send an API request to our Flask backend with the English input data, then retrieve API request endpoint should be defined to return the translated words. I don't know. Okay, so that's all we're going to be doing, right? To think about it, we're going to be sending our English thing to the backend, because the backend is Python, and the Python, you can install Keras to load our model, which is the model.h5 file, and then we can just do model.predicts the data that is sent here, and then we can send the predicted German back to the front end. But a few things with this that we have implemented. First of all, how do we send API request to the backend, right? That's the first problem. And the second problem is that how do we send along with it the English input data? So to do that, first of all, you need to know two things. Actually, I forgot what I said, but I think I talked about API request and then the form data. So API requests are, in this case, are just HTTP requests, and what they are is that they're just these things that you see often: gets, post, put, deletes. There should be a lot more. I don't believe there's an update, because I think put is for update, but there are more than this. And then you can send a request like this to the backend, and then if the backend has a matching has a matching header, I mean not header, has a matching, I don't know how to describe this, has a matching type. So if the backend also says post or get, they're going to trigger whatever is in that. I think I wrote in here a little bit, yeah, this post thing. But this post requires you to send an address to this thing right here. So how do we actually send the API request to that address? You're going to be using fetch libraries, API request libraries I should specify. And one API request library is fetch. You actually don't have to import it, you just fetch. Or you can do Axios. And I'm sure you've heard of many, like Ajax, yeah. But fetch seems to be the most friendly with the Chrome browser. Personally, when I was messing with Axios, I had to run into a few Node.js problems because it didn't want my Axios to reach my backend for some reason. But so we're going to be using fetch, and then we're just going to be typing in the endpoint address. And how do we send the data along with it? We just do first of all, method equals to post. And for post, a post method means that you send data along with this HTTP request to the endpoint. A get method means that you're not sending anything to the backend endpoint. And a put is actually the exact same thing as post, but usually people use put for updating stuff, and we tend to use post for creating new stuff in the backend. So for example, creating a new user and saving it to the database, we tend to use post. But if we're updating a user field, we could use post, right, to send data along, but people usually use put. And then delete is just delete. So the method is going to be post, and here's the key thing: we're going to have a body. Inside of the body, we can contain whatever we want, and then in the server, in the backend, we can retrieve this body and get the information inside. You want to have it as a key to value pair. So we're gonna have something like English this.state.translation English inputs, which we're going to create in a second. So first of all, and then second of all, how do we even get this? How do we even get the data from the input so that we can put it in here, right? That's the second problem for the React beginners. So in other words, how do we access stuff from here to over here, which seems to be in different locations? That is going to be done with a magical state. From here, we're going to write an onChange function. And this is going to be a little bit different because this is called an anonymous function. Just follow the syntax, and then we're going to do. Actually, let me not make it an anonymous function. It's kind of too much information. This dot change input. And then up here, as we did earlier, handle input change, make it an arrow function. Then we gotta pass in the event object, which is automatically passed in. Unless you didn't specify it. Then we can just do this.setState English inputs with the events.target.value. So right off the bat, I think if it was me learning this for the first time, I would have the following few questions. First of all, why is there an event here but there is no event here? The answer to that is because right here we're passing a reference to this thing. We're not passing the function itself, so we're not actually calling handle input change. So therefore we don't have to define the parameters. And it comes here, and it comes up here to find the requirements, right? And in this case we have the events, and this onChange thing has an event that can be passed in, and then we choose to pass it in. Second of all, I guess I will ask what is event.target.value. Now the input tag, if it has triggered a function on the input, you can always just do event.target.value to get the current value in the input tag. So to test this, we're going to be logging. Actually, let me do something right like this. You can always address stuff in the state directly, like this.state dots blah blah blah. You don't have to do this.getState, right? There is a set state, but there is no get state. We can log the console to log the English input. And I'm writing a function like this because this is a callback function, and the reason I do it like this instead of writing here console.log.this.state.English input is because setting state is asynchronous, which means there's a chance that after I type in set state and I do console.log stuff here, the state is not finished being set because these two trigger at the same time. Or this is triggered, but that one is the time that I console log, this is still not finished, I should say. So let me type stuff here. Go to info. Alright, so every time I type stuff, indeed stuff shows up. And quick example, if I were to just do console.log this.state.English input, I believe it is going to be one step behind. The console, whatever is in the console, is going to be one step behind. Do something right here, because setting state is asynchronous. And indeed, right, by the time I typed 2 F's, is only 1 F. So okay, that was a little brief intro to React, I suppose. It has been 18 minutes and oh man, I've been dragging too long. But in the next video, we're gonna be creating our Flask backend, and then sending stuff to it from the front end. So see you guys in the next video. By the way, then instead of, so what we're gonna be doing is to have the address and then method post. Let me just write this down right now so I don't forget later. And the body is going to be input text, and it's going to be the this.state.English input. Okay, so see you guys in the next video.